It's the college basketball's off season here, so why not dive into some fun topics about what's going on in the overall landscape of college basketball? So joining me is our friend Mike DeCourcy. So Mike, thanks so much for coming on again.
Oh, happy to join you again, Jared. Hope everything is well.
Yeah, it's been great weather finally turning around here in Connecticut, so we're starting to get a little spring summer feel here. But when we're talking with you, Mike, we're always talking brackets to some extent here. Today, though, not looking at where UConn's going to be quite yet, but we are talking about what's been out there in the news lately around the possibility of NCAA tournament expansion. I know you've written about this, you've looked into this, so I wanted to pick your brain on the topic a little bit. So I figured to start just from a high level overview. I know we've seen that the push to expand seems to be picking up some steam with those at the power levels there. To take us through where things stand right now.
Well, it was an idea that was first made public. I'm not sure about privately when it might have first been discussed, but a few years ago, Greg Sankey made it public that he thought that the tournament should consider expansion, and at that point, he correlated it with uh, Ole Miss winning the baseball championship, I believe, in the College World Series after being the last or one of the last teams in, and it was bothersome to those of us who live in the college basketball space because we know that baseball and basketball are different sports. They're just not similar. They're not similar in any way. How you win, how you succeed, how you build. They're not the same. And ultimately, if you happen to be like the Pittsburgh Pirates, you can win with Paul Skeens on the mound, but you can't. But you're not going to. You're not going to win over the course of a 162 game
Yeah.
season, except when he pitches, or most of the time when he pitches. And so it's just different. And so that was bothersome. And researching it related to the public and that sort of thing, I sense no interest, less than no interest in expansion. And there's not even an apathy about it, Jared. If there were apathy, that'd be one thing. But there's antipathy toward expansion. The basketball fan, the college basketball fan, does not want this. It where you're hearing it is now that Sankey got 14 out of 16 teams into the 2025 NCAA tournament. He's not been as active in this, and he's got the football stuff to worry about. So it's coming more from the ACC and Big 12 in particular. Big 12 maybe some uncertainty about how whether they'll be able to hold on to their status as the power grows for the SEC and Big 10. The ACC just struggling to be relevant because they've lost the plot. They don't play great basketball overall any longer. And so that's the idea where it's coming from. And there is support at the high mid-major level as well in the belief that, well, if they expand, they'll take more of us. It's kind of a fantasy.
Yeah.
Not saying they couldn't sort of luck their way into an extra bid from time to time, but this is mostly about the power conferences. What it isn't, I have to say, Jared, it's not about money. Everybody thinks it's about money. The television contract now exists as it does until 2032, and it
Mhm.
pays $1.1 billion a year. The people who are paying that, CBS and Turner, are not saying, oh, yeah, expand, we'll give you all kinds more money. They're not saying that. They're saying, we don't really want to do this. I mean, they're not
Yeah.
saying it loud. They're trying not to make the people who have the power in college athletics mad, but they're not interested in this. They don't want it. They know that their audience isn't there. When the tournament starts, an average game on Thursday and Friday averages out, maybe gets about 5 million. By the time they get through 67 games, they average 10 million per, but that's dragged down by the Monday and Tuesday games, the
Yeah.
first four
First,
games,
yeah.
where even a Carolina or an Indiana gets you to maybe two and change. I don't think one of those games has ever breached 3 million viewers. So we put another four games or another couple of games, whatever the number would be, on Tuesday and Wednesday, and you're not going to get that much more audience.
Yeah. I think one of the interesting questions around those first four type games, if they were to add more, would those be removed for the automatic qualifier? So if you win your conference, you're not going to be in that. How do you see that playing out as that this is talked about?
I'm not sure, but I don't think they want to go away from where they are now. It would be advantageous, to be honest.
Yeah.
It would be advantageous to the powers, to the ones and the twos, to go away from having the 16s play in the first four, because what ends up happening is the 16s that survive are stronger.
Yeah.
They clearly are superior to the teams they eliminated, as well as they have refined their ability a little bit, and they take a little bit less of the field. Remember, if they weren't eliminating two 16s, then two more 16 types would be on the 15 line, and it would go all the way up, and it
Hmm.
weakens the back of the field. So as it is now, this strengthens the field by the time we get to Thursday, and it makes it an even better product for CBS and Turner.
What do you buy when the argument is about access to the tournament? As D1 schools have grown in college basketball, the percentage should be increasing to allow those, the percentages how they see fit in terms of the access to postseason play.
What's total nonsense, Jared? Because uh, what the people who are joining at the lower level. I mean, we're
Right.
not seeing people say oh, they're sitting there winning D2 championships, so we're going to join. We're going to go join the Big East or the Big Ten. No, I mean they join the low major leagues, and so we've had. I don't know exactly the numbers, but I mean, over the course of my time, I think when I started covering college basketball, it's probably in the 270s, 280s, something like that. And we're up to 363 or 362 now. It's all been at the lower level. We have seen a few teams. Gonzaga made itself a major. Xavier, when I started, they were in the Horizon, what you now call the Horizon League. They were a 14 seed, that kind of thing. That they've now joined the Big East. So a few teams, very small handful. Creighton, Xavier, Gonzaga, St. Mary's to a lesser extent. They've made themselves big time. But the majority of it is teams joining like Merrimack, a very good program, but still at that level. And I don't think that you change the championship because we have 60, 70, 80 more Merrimacks.
Right. Yeah. I know you mentioned a little bit earlier in terms of maybe what would be kind of a bit of a fallacy to these high mid majors who think that there might be the idea that they get another team into the field because of this. How do you view that playing out that say, hey, maybe there's a second or third Atlantic 10 team that makes it over, a team like a Carolina or Indiana who's having a down year?
Right. Well, if you look at this past year, I believe that none of the four top misses were mid majors. They were not. Ohio State, Indiana, West Virginia, and I'm forgetting the fourth, but none of them was a mid major. They were all high majors that weren't quite there. So a year ago, in 2024, we might have had Indiana State make it.
Hmm.
And yeah, I thought that Charlie Baker was a bit disingenuous, honestly, when he threw Indiana State out there to try to make. Well, these are the kind of teams we'll get in if we went bigger. That's not really what's going to happen. I mean, I do this,
Yeah.
uh, Jared. For I've done it for five years for tournaments that actually happened, and one on top of that for a tournament that didn't happen. So I know what is out there. I know how the committee grades it. I've done fairly well in the projection contest business or whatever it is, the grading. I've had years. I had one really bad year I wasn't happy with. I've had two pretty okay years and then two great years. So I'm in the upper level of that.
Mhm.
So I think I can say I know what they want and I know what they'll put in the field, and it's not many Indiana States. It's not like George Mason this past year had a really
Right.
nice year. Tony Skinn did a great job, but they weren't getting in without winning the auto bid. And if VCU had lost that game, I
Yeah.
don't think they would have gotten in either because they played Dayton on their home floor on senior night with everybody in the world knowing they needed it to have a chance at an at large, and they couldn't pull it off.
Just like Alex, grilling season is back. And while our favorite team reloads, it's your turn to load up the grill with Martin Rosel's, the best meats Connecticut has to offer. Since 1928, Martin Rosel's has been crafting top quality hot dogs, kielbasa, and sausages using original recipes and only the finest ingredients. So as the warm weather returns, remember, both championship teams and great cookouts start with the right lineup. Look for Rosel's at your local grocery store or stop by their retail store in New Britain. And now, back to the episode. What role, I know you mentioned Charlie Baker there, what role do you see him playing in this and it kind of expansion possibilities under his leadership?
I think it's lobbying, negotiating with the networks to an extent, lobbying the people who are on the men's basketball committee. Remember, the men's basketball committee kind of has the final say here. It's their decision. I don't know if they'd start firing people on the committee if they don't get. I don't think that's what they would do, but that's who makes the final call. I would suppose a lot of it would be it's somewhat like in Congress. If it's a Democrat president and a Democrat Congress, they're going to kind of want to make the president happy.
Hmm.
And so if it's a expansion led conference commissioner slash NCAA president, they're probably going to go in the direction that they're led. But whoever's out there that's still thinking about the good of the game and what makes it best, I point to the end of this past regular season, Jared, when we had a series of games involving bubble teams. The schedule just
Yeah.
worked out that way. And I remember particularly because I work for the Big Ten Network, the ones that stick out in my mind, uh, Ohio State and Nebraska, Ohio State and Indiana, they all kind of played one another in the last week, and the games were riveting
Yeah.
because everybody knew they had great
They matter.
consequence. Now,
Yeah.
none of them ended up making it, but they all needed to win to stay in the mix. And if you go to 72, it's a little bit less pressure. If you go to 76, they might even roll out a B team. Let's not worry about this game. Let's just, let our walk-ons play this game, and we can preserve ourselves for the NCAA tournament. They can't keep us out of because they need a team that can
Yeah.
halfway bounce the ball.
Yeah. No, as you're talking through all these points, I know you've made it clear that from what you've seen, fans don't want this at all. Why do you think, and I know there are just trends across, sports across the board that things fans want or don't want still end up happening just for the sake of it, whether it's from a money perspective. We've seen a lot of the conference realignment stuff that's impacted rivalries that have gone away. Something about the NCAA tournament just kind of seems I'm trying to think of the right word, but it just seems like something that shouldn't be touched.
Yeah.
And that I think should be something that everyone could see. But why, even in spite of all the fan hate towards this, do you think they're still trying to push forward with it?
But Jared, I think there are differences between this and other things I've seen. And let's use the 17th NFL game as an
Hmm.
example. Fans didn't really want that either, but they were ambivalent toward it. It was, we really don't want this, but it wasn't this would be a horrible thing. It's one more game. They don't think it's necessary. The math doesn't work out right. You don't have 8 home, 8 road,
Yeah.
all that. But they didn't really have strong feelings about it. This is different in that respect. I think if you look at the college football playoff, I think there was some apathy toward it
Yeah.
and some positive thinking. I don't think it was something that college football fans were kind of regressive. They want they kind of still grew up in that bowl era and can't shake that concept. But once it was presented to them and it happened, they loved it. But there wasn't the antipathy toward it that there is with this. I did a Twitter poll when it came out. This was discussed in March, and I had an interview with Dan Gavitt, who is the
Mhm.
vice president of basketball for the NCAA. And so he told me that it wasn't a done deal. That was basically the crux of the interview, that there's more talk about it than he can ever remember, but it wasn't a done deal the way some were suggesting. That was the crux of the interview. But in adjacent to that, I did a Twitter poll. It was 91% leave it as it is. 91%. I mean, that's a pretty strong indication of what you're messing with. And I will tell you this. if we went to 72 or 76, basically the same people who ignore Tuesday and Wednesday now will ignore it, and then they will pick up on Wednesday. The people who really love the game. But where you'll lose is one, that end of the regular season pressure that I talked about,
Yeah.
because it just opens the door to so many teams that aren't that great. I mean, we let Carolina in this year, and Carolina had no business being in. So why do we think there's that much on the other side of that line? And then the other thing it hurts is, how do you run a bracket pool when you don't know who? I mean, that's like 10% of the field that you won't know whether they're playing on Thursday when you send out your blank bracket on Monday.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, and I think that has but the potential to begin to cut away from the audience of the NCAA tournament. Jared, the one thing about the NCAA tournament that is different from everything else, the only thing that's similar is like the Olympics.
Yeah.
Figure skating, like it's on Sunday afternoon, gets a decent number for NBC or whatever, but then it's in the Olympics and it's like the
Massive.
biggest
Yeah.
thing since the MASH finale. Okay. So that's different. But any sport that's played regularly, there's nowhere else where the customary audience goes from here to here. The Super Bowl, like the NFL's like the biggest program in America, and then the Super Bowl is just the biggest of the biggest
Biggest
program.
ones. Yeah.
But college basketball is somewhat of a niche audience, somewhat fractured because there are so many teams and so
Yeah.
many games. There's a lot of people watching college basketball at any one time, but they're not all watching the same game. But it's still the audience probably quadruples, triples to quadruples in general
Yeah.
of people watching the sport. That doesn't happen anywhere else. It doesn't happen in baseball. The audience doesn't do that for the world's, but
Right.
this tournament does. We're drawing in people who don't follow the sport from November to March. By expanding, one, you're giving them less of a reason to do that, and two, you might chase away some of the people that we had been drawing in all these years.
Yeah. I'll wrap with this one for you. What does your gut say happens on this over the next couple of years here?
I'd say probably they'll end up expanding. I hope that if it does, that it'll go to 72 and not 76, because 76 it starts to get really grim.
Yeah.
You start to draw in teams that just don't have any business being in there. The other thing you have to remember is that there's a good chance you're starting to bring in teams that won't make a good show. I mean, we have blowouts now, but we don't want a bunch of blowouts.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that would be a significant mistake. I don't know where the voices are, other than people in the media like me that are discouraging it. If there were different people involved in college athletics,
Yeah.
that understand the chemistry of the 68/64, that understand the importance of auto bids and all of that, I'd say that there was a good chance this would be defeated. But I don't know where those voices are now. All I hear is we need more seats at the table, and not, hey, that table should stay as rich as it is now, as attractive as it is now.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly with you, Mike. I appreciate the conversation and insight onto this, and I guess we'll see where things land over the next period of time here. But regardless of what it might be heading into next year, we hope to see UConn as a one seed in your next bracket heading into the next season.
Well, gosh, with the schedule they're putting
Yeah.
together, if they still are able to have practice on January 1st or December 25th or whenever I do my first bracket, I'll give it to them just for survival.
There we go. I know they've got a gauntlet, so they've got some good opportunities this year to they could win some of those games to really rise up your bracket there. So we'll see what happens. But Mike, thanks so much for hopping on.
Thanks, Jared.